Good afternoon, everybody in Chile, in Argentina, in Europe, and especially in LA. I am Verónica Cortines, the director of the Center for Southern Cone Studies at UCLA, and I would really like to welcome everybody warmly to this wonderful conversation with Andreas Fontana, the director of the film Azor, and Carmen Iriondo, one of the main protagonists of the film, and she has a wonderful role in the movie. I would like to thank Sig Trautenberg, who is a former PhD student of mine at UCLA and now a Spanish educator at the Geffen School, at the Geffen Academy at UCLA, who has planned and organized this event. So I will like to thank Sig, who will thank our contributors, and then he will start with a brief introduction to the event. Then we are going to have a conversation with Carmen and Andreas, moderated by Sig and myself. And then at the end, we are going to leave time so that the public can participate as well. So Sig.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank our sponsors here at UCLA, the Center for Southern Cone Studies, and its director, Verónica Cortines, of course. Also our co-sponsor, the Center for European and Russian Studies. And I'd also like to thank MUBI, the US distributor of Azor, for allowing us to share the film with all of you. In addition to distributing this movie, MUBI is also a streaming service. In the interest of full disclosure, I am a happy subscriber to MUBI, and they wanted you all to know that you can get a subscription to MUBI. There's a student discount available at mubi.com/student. As Veronica said, we're honored to have Andreas Fontana join us here. He's currently in Spain, is that correct? Andreas has a background in comparative literature and film production. We're going to get into his connection to Argentina a little bit later. Here, Azor is his first feature-length fiction film. It had its world premiere at the Berlinale. It also screened at film festivals around the world, including San Sebastian, among others. And we are also honored to welcome Carmen Iriondo. She joins us from Mar del Plata in Argentina. She really steals the show in the film as La Viuda Lacrosteguy, or the widow Lacrosteguy in the movie. When not on screen, stealing the show, as I said, she's a psychoanalyst, a writer, poet, dancer, and singer-songwriter. And I'm excited to announce that later on in this discussion, Carmen will be sharing poems that she selected for this occasion. Now, finally, some of you may know that this month marks the 40th anniversary of the start of the Falkland Islands War, which, as Carmen will tell us, is known as La Guerra de las Islas Malvinas in Argentina. So this is certainly a timely moment to be discussing Azor, especially since Argentina's defeat in the war really marked the beginning of the end of the dictatorship. And with that, I'll turn it over to Veronica for the first question.
Yes, I would like to congratulate you, Andreas, and also Carmen, for this wonderful film. I read in an interview that shows after the film in movie, you said this is a private film that had to do with your grandfather. Can you explain to us how did the movie originated, and what has this to do with your grandfather, and with this quality, I believe, of the film of search? It's as if you are searching to understand your grandfather's past, maybe, or your own past in Argentina, this wonderful quality of a nebulosa search that I believe the movie has.
Yeah, thank you very much also for the invitation and for the for the question also. Yeah, I have to say first of all that for sure my grandfather is in a way involved in this project because he was a Swiss private banker, but the movie is not at all biographical. At this point, I say that because there is a kind of impulse from my family background, if you want, but there is nothing to do with the story, personal story of my grandfather or his supposed business he did with Argentina. Actually, he was not doing business with Argentina. So I think the question is, where do I come from? You know, I come from Switzerland, but I also come from this milieu, this how to say that in English? This
you can go to Spanglish. You can say in Spanish.
Este ámbito, no? This social class, which is very specific in Switzerland, which is the little world of private banking, and of course it's a privileged class and with a lot of opulence. And my mother was completely in a different direction, because, as you know, or maybe you don't know, in Switzerland and until the 90s, the private bank cannot be given to the woman, because it was only a man world. So it was very masculine. So my mother was not able to follow the dynasty, if you want. But better for her, because I think it's not a very funny world, and she was much more happy to do different things. So I was the first, after my generation of my mother, just to come back to this world, just to understand where I come from and where we come from, because it's all my generation. So I think that the impulse of the movie is coming from this question, very simple, and also, of course, what kind of concrete implication it means. You know, bankers not only numbers and office work. It's a lot to do with intimacy with the clients, especially with the private banker, because of course bank is a culture and very diverse different areas of banks, but the private bank is very specialized with the intimacy. And I was very interested in that. How do a private banker work with in the limits of this intimacy when he is just making business with some people which is not clear or not clean with the money, you know?
How were you able to do research in Argentina about this world so sinister that is represented there? How did they accept? I mean, did you get to research this?
Yeah, because I bought some sweets and it was very easy for me with this sweet. And because I'm Swiss, and as you know, and Carmen can talk about it better than me, Argentina have a very strong relationship with Europe, especially with the French speaker people of Europe, especially with Switzerland. So my image from the beginning was quite good to enter to this very strange world, and then I have to say that maybe I'm a good spy.
Sick.
Sure. I have a question for Carmen. Carmen, would you tell us a little bit about how you first met Andreas and how you came to become involved in the movie?
Yes. I was phoned by an assistant that I had once. He was very young when he worked for me, and we have a special sense of humor, both of us, because it was practically one of my sons. He has the same age as my children, and he called me and said, just like that, "Could you be interested in a French widow?" And I said, yes. I thought it was a joke. And he said, tomorrow they're going to phone you. And it was this. I mean, I have courage. I mean, but I never dreamt that I could fall in a thing like that. I always wanted to be an actress. I always wanted to be what I did. So when.
But did you know that the movie was going to go into the depth of the dictatorship?
Yes, when I met Andreas, he's not a very communicative person, but I knew there that he was I knew it was a good place to be on, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. And when I read the scripts, I knew I had a novel more than a movie. It was a novel, and I couldn't. I didn't think about the widow. I didn't think about me. This is the best thing that happened for me in this work. I never thought about me. I couldn't care less who I was, because when I worked, I don't know if it was because speaking in French was so strange, because I learned French when I was very small, that it suddenly made me another person. Yeah, so in that sort of rare, strange thing, I didn't think about me. I didn't think about my ego thing. I couldn't care less if I was pretty, I wasn't, qué sé yo, my hair, I couldn't care less, because I was absolutely there. And
is it, Andreas, to direct a movie, a feature film, is very different, no? Then, because you had already several shorts, actually, who had gotten recognition and prizes, but it's different to direct actors in a feature film. What were your particular challenges, especially with people from all different countries and different languages? And
yes, talking with about actors, I was very happy with this work, because actually I come from a different kind of cinema. We can call it cinema du réel, cinema real, you know, like a different a mix between documentary and fiction. So I always work in this mixture, very strange. But then I was always very aware of my love with to direct people, you know, just to write a script, not a script, but a text, a dialogue, and to create fiction with very few things. So I was very happy with Azor at the beginning, yet, because I knew that it was very strongly a fiction, and but even with this very particular kind of casting we made, which is very strange, because, for example, Carmen, you're not you're a professional, but you're not your life is not acting, and I think it was very interesting for me, because when you work with non-professional actors, as we call it, you have to observe much more than to put some idea in the people you are talking with, and you have to observe how the actor is moving, and just talking with what kind of rhythm, what kind of skills everybody have, and what kind of also fear they have, you know. So it's very important, the work of observation, and I think I'm quite good observer, so I think it was very good for me.
Talking about this mixture, so to speak, of the documentary and the fiction, because I felt that while watching the movie, for example, there were scenes that reminded me of Patricio Guzmán's La Batalla de Chile. There are moments that I felt that it had the model of the documentary very much there, especially because you are trying also to give a representation of a historical, a traumatic, a terrible historical event. So how did you play around with these two big genres?
I think the main thing is that, of course, there is a plot in Azor. I think it's an important plot, because it's a fiction, and it plays also with a genre movie of a film noir, like a polar movie. So I think that the plot is important, but I want not to make the plot too important to hide the main thing, which was just to observe this milieu, this world we were going into. So it was for me a work of delicate balance between to follow the very how do you say that, very fragile plot and action, and just to let appear some very moment of observation of tension, you know. And for example, the bank creates some different genre of tension, which is very important in the movie. For example, Ivan is always in situation to be evaluated by the other one. I think it's a very specific kind of tension we have in the bank, and I wanted to play with this specific tension. Of course, it's not documentary because I created for the plot and for the movie. But then in the set, according to the casting we had, it was very easy to create this tension to recreate actually the tension of evaluation, because Yvan Deville, which is acted by Fabrizio Rangione, was an European, and he was not talking so well Spanish. He was not from the same milieu actually, and the other one were just observing him and thinking something about him, you know. And so it was very interesting because the idea of the tension of the plot was present in the set itself. In this way, I think the movie is playing with the documentary actually.
And Andreas, you talked about the plot of the film as being important, but maybe second to the atmosphere of the film. It really is a sinister film. But I wanted to ask you about the detective aspects of the film. It does have a central mystery with, you know, the sort of disappearance of keys. It's not totally clear if he's back in Switzerland or if he's as one character mentions, if he's in a basement in Argentina. So I was wondering, do you see this as a detective film? And do you think that Ivan, by the end of the film, finds what he's looking for? Because we do see his transformation throughout the film, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, you know, maybe the writer, Argentinian writer and critic, Ricardo Piglia, which is very important in the Latin American panorama of literature, and he was saying something very interesting. He was saying there is only two possibility of narration, which is the investigation of a crime or a travel. It's a little bit radical as a proposal, but I think it's interesting because I'm very, I feel very identified with this proposition. I mean, and I think Azor is a little bit both things, because in a way it's completely a travel, which is as we understand quite quickly a kind of reference to the Heart of Darkness. This kind of travel into some very dark affair, and in the other way, it's an investigation about somebody who is missing. And for me, it's very interesting writing. I mean, interesting form, the detective form. I'm very interested in this particular form. So yeah, I think it's a kind of detective movie, but not only this one. I just say, and then about Ivan, I think Ivan, it's a very complicated character because is completely ambiguous, and I think his ambiguity is more important than my possibility to answer very precisely about him, because it's important, as was saying, a very important sentence when I was beginning the movie to write. I read some sentence from Jonathan Swift, and I don't remember in English how is it, but in Spanish it is el banquero es como un pozo hondo, no se sabe si es vacío o si es muy profundo, ¿no? No sé cómo traducirlo en inglés, pero
Sí,
a banker is a deep well or a deep hole. You don't know si está vacío
o profundo.
you don't know if it's empty or ¿qué dijiste después?
You don't know if it's empty or very deep.
Sí, hondo, yes, deep.
And I think it was important for this character just to remain ambiguous, because it's very difficult to generate some empathy with a character who is a banker. I mean, normally when I see, when I watch the Wolf of Wall Street, I like the character because I understand the way he wants to win in a way, and it's a redemption, you know. It's a redemption story. Has a lot of movie of Scorsese, but I was not very interested in make a redemption story, because I think in Switzerland the Protestant culture is not a culture of redemption, you know. It's more
this movie is also full of literary references. It shows that you are a very good reader of Latin American literature. I think, I mean, you quote Borges, Quixote also, I mean, of Latin American and Spanish tradition. For our students who are, many of them probably watching, is Borges, because Borges is also a master of the detective story, are Borges' stories somehow present in your mind when looking for the genre?
Of course, but it's very difficult to admit his my reference to Borges, because it's too important actually as a writer. But yeah, of course, the genre is very it's a ludic way to make cinema, and I'm very, as you say, I'm very literary person, but I hope that you can watch the movie without to have read quite nothing, you know, because actually it's not about that. It's about money, and it's about the power of that, and I think you have shapes, you have different shapes, and you can work with different shapes, but
it is about money, but in a sense it's worse than that, because we can think of Fitzgerald, or I mean, we can think of movies about money that are not sinister the way this one is. So there is a denunciation of all the the dark side of the dictatorship, even the Catholic Church. I mean, which in the case of Chile is not, it's not the case. The Catholic Church was the great defender of the oppressed, not in Argentina, and that is very well, I believe, portrayed. So the movie is also a denunciation, but I think what I like particularly about your movie, as opposed to many political films, if we want to call them that, is that is not declamatory, that is not, doesn't have a thesis you want to force the reader to agree with. I find it a movie in that sense. I go back to my first question, a movie in which you are sincerely exploring. You don't have the answer you want to give to the spectator, but rather you are searching to understand this opaque, full of fog movie, without stopping the denunciation, but without making it grandiloquent. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, maybe because I think that the truth, if it does exist, is not an explanation, but just a physical travel. You know, just a feeling. And I think as a spectator, I prefer movies which are a physical experience, even if it's very with a lot of distance, than a thesis. I'm a little bit annoyed with the thesis, you know, especially when the movie explore a so chaotic and impossible to understand experience as the violence of states. You know, I mean, I think a movie is not able to explain that. So,
or maybe it explains it better than anything. I mean, I think in one movie one can experience what we haven't, thank God, very well. I think. I mean, it's a synthesis, a well-done movie, of course, into precisely, I think, an explanation of what we cannot understand.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes.
And I think that's I think I wanted to I remember something and I forgot it suddenly. So yeah.
Carmen, I have a question for you to bring you into this discussion. So language is very important in the film. We're at this, we have this very cosmopolitan panel we've assembled here. Your character switches between French and Spanish, and one of the most, for me, the most memorable lines of the film is when you switch from French and you're talking to Inez, the main character's wife, about you know, people you knew back in Switzerland, and then you sit down with Yvonne, and all of a sudden things become very serious, and you say, "Nos persiguen como conejos." They're pursuing us, they're chasing us as though we were rabbits, like rabbits. How did you see that particular change in language, and what was it like to act in two languages? That's always been something that I've wondered.
Because it was written in both languages, but when he said something like, "Oui, je suis d'accord, I didn't believe him. That's why I started speaking in Spanish. And I said, "No me estás entendiendo, you're not understanding." I didn't know if they were going to, if Andreas was going to leave that, because I just rushed. I rushed in Spanish. It came like that. I mean, I didn't believe Fabrizio there when he said, "Sí, ya sé, I know what's happening," and I no, he doesn't believe it. Entonces I said, "No, lo estás entendiendo." Entonces it came absolutely. It happened to me all the time in this work, that it was espontáneo, absolute espontáneo. I didn't have to think, I didn't have to suffer. Nothing happened to me, nothing strange happened to me. And I'm used to Argentina, which it's a very strange place to work when you show yourself, when you exhibit yourself, because it's a strange thing that things are organized so that envy, jealousness, every horrible feeling, you get into rooms to wait for things, and there you have, is it true that you're going to wear your hair like that? You're very thin, aren't you? And you start working with all that in your head, and you want to kill people, and you can't act. That's my experience. I did always small roles because I adored to follow a film in its trance. What both Veronica and Andreas are saying, what happens on the way, because what for me, no, subjectively, the work of Fabrizio is a person who starts and finishes in the same suspense, but not suspense of terrors, of a climate that something horrible is going to happen, but it doesn't happen. Is it going to happen all the time? And with a practically non-move, he doesn't move his face. He just, at the end, smiles, and then you see, what happened to him? But it's absolute a miracle what Andreas does with what is not there, because I think that the non-existence of one person is what sustains all the picture. He's not there. Where is he? Where is he? What happened? Who is he? And that is it's so well done that I mean I saw the film 4 or 5 times because each friend wanted me to go with them. So I saw the light, then I saw the sound, and then I just went into it. But I didn't see myself, because when I saw myself as the viuda de Lacrosteguy, I didn't recognize me. So I said, it's okay because it's not me.
Somebody else. Let me bring in one of the Q&A, one of the questions that I think it's apropos what we are talking about, from somebody called Andres Caro, whom I don't know who it is, but maybe you do. So I will cut it down because there are 2 questions in one. I will ask the second one, which it's appropriate to what we are discussing. I would please like to listen to you talking about the Latin American aristocracy, that Criollism that is prevalent from Argentina to Mexico, and their relationship to violence, power, and also silence and intimacy. I ask because it seems that Azor is about this class. So Andreas, if you would like to comment on that.
Yeah, it's a complicated question because of course Azor is about this class. But I think it's about more, in a way, the kind of mondialization they invent this class years ago, and the way in the 80s this situation was, yes. And I think, for example, the question is how Yvonne and Ines are part of this class in Switzerland, and how, for example, the character of the viuda Lacrosteguy, of Carmen, is also part of this class, and they recognize themselves as part of the same class. What kind of a system, what kind of codes they share, and how they recognize themselves as part of the same class. So this is about this feeling of pertinency, but then of course the question is much more precise and much more politic. So I have to say that if I'm not a specialist about the complicity of the high class in Argentina with the dictatorship, I think of course there was a strong, and I'm sure there have been a strong complicity, but I've been talking a lot about that with friends in Argentina, and it's a very complex subject, and I think the movie is not saying only that. I think the movie is saying yes, there was complicity. But my judgment is a little bit more, how do you say that, more complex, because I'm nobody to say if I was in this situation I would have been this thing or those things. I was not in this situation. So my work as a filmmaker was to create some characters that were a little bit complex, you know. And even in the high class, you have different kind of, I mean, liberality or conservative feelings, or even for example, the fact that the daughter of Augusto Padel Camon, which is an oligarch, if you want to say like that, was part of a political organization, is completely, maybe Carmen can talk better than me about that, but it's completely possible. I mean, a lot of people of this class had some son or daughter in those left organization, and then
let me, Andreas, bring in another question from the audience, and I would like both of you to reply. The first part, I think it's more relevant for Andreas, and then the second for Carmen. Is from Cristian Mora, a film student at UCLA in our department. He says, hi, one question for Andreas. Would you say that there are other aspects of the Argentinian dictatorship to be depicted yet? Is it a period that the Argentinian audience is interested to see represented to this day? So what aspects of the Argentinian dictatorship you feel are still need to be represented yet?
I think again, it's in this way, I was just trying to make a movie about the banker. And I think the fact that the banker is going to Argentina, it's a combination of different things. And the first of those things was that I knew very well Argentina, and I feel very legitimate in doing this movie there, and I knew people, and I was very involved affectively there. So I was very, for me it was important to go in Argentina and not to go, for example, in South Africa, but in South Africa we had a lot of bankers who made some very dark things too in a very dark period. So it's a very sad things to say, but I have to say that it would have been possible to make the movie also in Paraguay, in Chile, in Brazil, you know. For that reason, I think that my position is not about Argentina and the dictatorship. My position is about Swiss and bankers, and I think I just try to find the best way to depict the Argentina dictatorship in this very precise situation, and because I don't like to talk about things I don't know, but then really my position is always as a Swiss.
Carmen, what has been the reaction from the audience in Argentina? Paraphrasing the question from Cristian Mora. The audience, well, I mean, does the Argentinian audience want to continue to see movies about the dictatorship?
Yes, but I don't think that this kind of movie is what Argentinians want to see, because Argentina has become very literal. It's very difficult for Argentine now to be, I don't know, to see life as a metaphor, or to hear words as well, not so literally, because words sometimes are like sounds, but those sounds are actions, and those actions do harm, and that's what is good in the film. I mean, a film is that. I mean, if you have to talk about this, it's not that. And Argentines now needs absolute poems that are literal. There are people writing, I go to Mar del Plata on a car. The climate is frozen, so I go and yeah, and they all of it's very strange, but it's happening.
What has been the reaction, Andreas, with the pandemic for the film worldwide?
The reaction is a shock. I mean, is shock. They don't know what to say. I think that if you name in Argentine high class, you know, there's these 70% of people hate hate the thing. They think that they were monsters. That what I reacted a lot. I come from that place, and I reacted very badly. I am Peronista, which is a holy holy sin for my for my grandparents, because I was brought up by them. That's why I speak English, I speak French, and I play music, and they made me do all that. Now I am absolutely grateful.
Going back, Carmen, I mean, Andreas, to the film reaction, has it been, because in a sense, your film was so praised in the States that it became known. That's the way Sid found out about it. Because of the amazing reviews.
I received letters from people abroad that ask me if I'm the same on Facebook, and not in Argentina.
But the movie, sorry, Carmen, the movie have been very had a lot of success a lot of success, good success in United States as a first movie from Europe, which is very difficult to penetrate the American market. And I was talking about that with Michael Lieberman from a movie when I was in New York, just to get some ceremony. I was asking, but why? Because in New York, it stays 12 weeks in cinema, which is, I mean, it's amazing. 12 weeks is a lot.
What do you mean by Europe? In what countries?
No, in New York, 12 weeks in New York. And I ask why so much time, and why so desire with this movie, and of course nobody can answer to this question, but he was saying something interesting. He was saying, because according to a lot of critics, people is very interested now of the post-Trump era. It's not completely post, actually. It's Trump era, and even in England, I mean, with the Boris Johnson era, which is a very strong relationship, and very very dark relationship between the power and the money, you know, and the finance. And of course, I've been writing the movie just beginning the writing when Trump had been elected. So it was a little bit of coincidence. But I think in art, the coincidences are part of the process. So I think there is some answer.
But in Switzerland, did it have a good reaction?
Yes, I don't say that. I mean, good reaction. The critics in every part of the world were very good, and Switzerland, the critics were quite good. A little bit surprised about this movie because it's strong, and the people didn't want to see this movie for sure. I mean, the audience is not interested in seeing a movie with Swiss banker, especially involved in Argentinian dictatorship. That's true. So the audience was not very enthusiastic, but the critics were very good, and I think it's a paradox, you know. When I mean, it's not a paradox because the movie is not completely commercial, but it's an important part of our history, and I think for me it's quite important to talk about that.
I have a question, changing the subject here a little bit. I love the costumes in this film, and I understand that you worked with costume designer Simona Martinez for this movie. And Carmen, I want you to chime in here too about your costumes for the movie. But Andreas, sometimes the characters don't speak, but I think the costumes really do speak volumes for them, even when they're silent. There's that memorable dialogue when Inez is telling Ivan what he should wear when he's going to meet with the sort of gaudy nouveau riche Formula One driver, right?
Yes.
And she says you should wear the cream-colored suit, or even worse, like the double-breasted suit. So how did you go about the process of choosing costumes for the film and what the characters would wear?
Yeah, of course, in this class, in this milieu, the costume is very important because it's a way to, again, to be part of it or not. Just in the first sight, you know, there is some very cruel, some cruel sentence. Somebody from this class said me when I was writing the movie, when I was investigating, he said, you know, it's a very aristocratic mentality, but he was saying, when you see somebody at the first sight, you can understand if he's part of it or not, you know, just at the first sight. And of course, it has to do with the way the body is moving and the way the head is just driving like that. But of course, also it has to do with the costume. So I was very interested in work with this question in the movie in a very minimalist way. You know, how a costume can define some character, because we have a lot of character in Azor, and it was difficult to make difference, you know. And for example, with Farrell, I was very happy with this character because it was very easy for me to find his costume. I've been working a lot with Slim Arons, is a very good photographer. It was a photographer. He was working around pool in the high class society during the 70s and jet sets, etc. And I was a lot with these photos with the costume with Simona, just saying maybe Farrell could be like this guy, and this guy in question was a guy with a white pants and like a violet shirt. It was very vulgar, but it was a funny game, and I think in a movie which is very strong in a political terms and very touchy, you have to find some areas of joy, you know, and the costume, joy and play, and the costume was a moment and an area of joy and of just playing, you know.
Also the beautiful locations, no, that must have been joy too. I mean, the atmosphere, it's a wonderful film.
But I think, yeah, the location was for me much more than the beauty. The importance was the ghosts, as I say, the aura, you know, how a space can bring some presence in every terms. Because if you are in the Círculo de Armas, it's a real circle. It's not the Círculo de Armas because it's impossible to film there, but it's called a circle of marine, of the military marine. And until very few years ago, it was completely closed, only admitted for guys, only for former Marines, etc. So it was really a place of power and masculinity and conservative thinking. And I think that the place was yet completely full of this atmosphere. We didn't make a lot there. We just tried to catch it, you know. And I think we did the same work in a lot of places.
Let me ask you another question from the audience. It says, I would like to recognize that Azor is one of the greatest movies I have seen recently. What were the literary and film references you were thinking about while conceiving and filming the movie?
Yes, it's a very difficult question because I'm completely chaotic in my relationship with the reference. Sometimes I believe in something and then I forgot it. So I think, of course, as I mentioned before, there is a huge reference, which was not a reference. It was like a game of difference and similarity. So it was the Earth of Darkness of Conrad, and the game was just. I didn't reread the book before to write the script, but it was quite present in my mind. And the game was to ask myself, what would have been writing Conrad himself if his character was not was not a sailor but was a banker, you know. So it was this kind of game I was just trying to make with my friend. And then as a reference, I have to say that we talked before about detective. I'm very I think Chandler is important in this way, because Chandler, of course, it's the city as a labyrinth, but also the atmosphere of this high class, you know. And Chandler is always dealing with those atmosphere, which is not clean for sure, but always with a lot of money. So I was very impressed of this work, and I think for me it's a master. And today, maybe Fritz Lang is important also today, but
the machinery, yeah.
And Andreas, you collaborated with Mariano Ginas on the screenplay, and I want to give a plug to Mariano's film La Flor, which has a running time of 13 and a half hours. It's split up into different episodes. But what was the process of working with him like, and what did he bring to the film in particular from his knowledge and his experience?
Yeah, Mariano, I admire his work, and I knew his work much before to begin with the movie, and I was a huge fan of Historias Extraordinarias, for example. And then when I came for I've been living in Argentina, I've been traveling quite every year in Argentina for a long time, but when someday I went there and I asked to my Argentinian producer, I need somebody to help me for the Argentinian character. It's not possible for me to work alone with that. And I said, if I have to choose, I prefer to choose somebody I love the work, and I choose Mariano Ginas. And Violeta Bava knew him. And we met, and it was very interesting as an impulse for the movie and for the writings. And it was more as a mentor, you know, just different conversation, and just to share a lot of things. But I was trying. I am bringing the material, and we discussed this material, and I was writing again, etc., etc. It was more like this kind of chess game. And then I remember. I didn't. What the last part of the question?
What did he contribute?
Yeah, I think it was. We were talking about that with him recently. The most important thing he made was just to push a little bit the movie into the fantastic, fantástico porteño, como la llaman, ¿no? The genre of fantastic from Buenos Aires. which is a very specific genre from Cortázar to Borges to Pío Casares, this kind of writers.
Further away, yes.
Yeah, and I think I was, because I'm a very, very obsessive investigator, and so I bring a lot of very precise material of people, biography, as between an anthropologist and a journalist, and then it pushed a little bit more the characters into one step, one step far away from those realistic characters, which was very interesting for me, because actually we share maybe the same humor. So it was very natural for me also, but I was a little bit afraid of that, and it made me brave in a way.
Voy a cambiarme al español para permitir que Carmen nos lea algún poema suyo. Y Carmen, ¿de qué manera tu ser escritora te ayuda o te de alguna manera enriquece tu actuación en la película?
En la película no sé si tiene que ver. Yo, digamos que hago música, también bailo clásico y todo eso me ayuda también a no tener vergüenza en los momentos que me expongo. Después me agarra a mí el ataque, pero el momento que estoy no me importa. Pero tiene que ver, yo empecé muy chiquita a escribir, a los 8 o 9 años. Y me preguntaron qué es ese y yo dije un poema sin saber lo que estaba diciendo. O sea, hay mucho en mi vida de esto, porque el francés también es así. Yo le conté a Andreas que mi abuela decidió a los 4 años que yo tenía que aprender francés y yo vivía con mi mamá, que tenía un problema serio de adicción, o sea, que estaba encerrada con mi mamá en un lugar espantoso, qué sé yo. Y un día tocaron el timbre y yo era la que tenía 5 años, abría la puerta, la levantaba ya del suelo, era como una persona grande, ya de muy chiquita. Y abrí la puerta y había una señora con bigotes, eso no me puedo olvidar nunca, vestida con una especie de taller con pollera, toda así, y me dijo, bonjour Carmen, ¿cómo ça va? Con una voz así, y yo no podía creer lo que estaba viendo, creía que era no sé,
Lo fantástico.
Con mi mamá que nunca vino, porque mi mamá nunca estaba para venir. Entonces dije, hay una señora que habla algo raro en la puerta. Bueno, no sé quién es, no sé quién es. Entonces ella me empezó a explicar en francés, además. Nunca me dejó hablar en castellano, nunca. Hasta los 18 años que la seguí viendo, si yo le hablaba en castellano me daba vuelta la cara como si fuera un perro, ¿entendés? Me hacía así. Y yo tenía que hablar en francés.
¿De qué manera te lleva esto a la escritura?
Bueno, me llegó porque me hizo leer Verlaine a los 5 años. Y yo recitaba cosas que no tenía ni idea que quería, hasta el día de hoy me las acuerdo, todas, me acuerdo, pero de todo lo que me enseñó, que eran poemas además muy avanzados y después también, qué sé yo, leí todo, además me hablaba de cosas rarísimas, que las guerras púnicas, que qué sé yo, y yo tenía 6 años, y no sé, además seguía sin entender. Ella estuvo bien porque me dijo, como todavía no vas al colegio, te voy a enseñar cómo es el colegio. Y la primera lección fue, le tableau, le pendant, y yo digo, ¿qué le pasa? ¿Entendés? No entendía, pero a la vez yo en eso soy también como Andrea, yo no puedo parar de la curiosidad. ¿Quién es esta persona? Porque no puede ser. Y así, sin darme cuenta, aprendí a hablar francés. Además aprendí muy bien porque era buenísima para enseñar la gramática también. Y después seguí toda mi vida leyendo en francés y esas clases sociales siempre están hablando en francés por una cosa o por otra. Mi abuela usó el francés para hablar mal de mí, cosa que no se dio cuenta que me lo había enseñado. Decía, faites attention a la petite y la petite. Yo decía, pero no digas petite porque soy
Carmen,
yo.
léenos un poema, porque ya nos tienes curiosa.
Este poema en realidad lo elegí, es en castellano, porque me da fiaca leer en inglés, tengo traducidos, pero me pareció, este poema salió hace poco y es un poema justamente antes de la película, que me preocupaba esto de ser trilingüe en un lugar, porque todo el tiempo me pasa que cuando estoy escribiendo me da ganas de pasarme al idioma que en realidad estoy pensando, porque el francés, viste, que te afina cualquier cosa. Vos venís escribiendo una cosa espantosa, le metés 3 palabras en francés y ya cambia como la textura. Y el inglés pasa lo mismo, pero porque el inglés es monosilábico. Es lo mismo como para cantar, es mucho mejor cantar en inglés que en francés, por ejemplo, o que en castellano cuando empiezan las esdrújulas. Es una palabra que es, qué sé yo.
Tanto que le gustaban a Borges.
Claro,
No.
pero para cantar son bravas. Entonces, bueno, y entonces en ese momento me enojé. Y dije, ¿por qué también me enseñaron tantas cosas que estaba como un poco sobrepasada de saberes? Entonces escribí este que se llama Otro idioma. No lo tengo traducido ni lo traduje yo, pero bueno, es así. Tiene yo empecé escribiendo en inglés, I would love to remain silent and to keep on feeling. Y en francés, je voudrais toujours danser une obstination, un oiseau. Y esto se llama Otro idioma y dice así. Lo que ha hecho de mí un pájaro distinto, de latitudes frías, resistente, duro, con plumas impermeables, al menos por un rato. Sé que una extraña lengua me ha codificado, por no decir que dos cantos extraños, voces de animales roncos, a veces un chillido, con el paladar tan distinto como mudarse a otro techo. Del diapasón que suena solo para ella, expósita, la del enigma del nombre encerrado en cajas de cartón, disimulado entre ropas regaladas a la iglesia. Y a los pájaros del campanario, aquel disparatado en un barrio moderno. ¿Quién tuviera plumillas en el cuerpo para agitarlas pícaras ante la nada misma que es la seducción? Sacudiendo agua de la lluvia inesperada que asustó al sueño, sin trinos ni truenos, sin aviso, el frío familiar. Creo que es yo. No.
Muchas gracias.
Es una síntesis de muchas cosas que se hablan hoy.
On this high note, I think we are going to, it's coming close to the end. Would you like to add anything that we feel we have left out, Andreas?
I mean, we talk a lot of things, and of course a lot of things we get in silence for sure. But I think we had a good talk, no?
We had, yes, an excellent talk. Sí, el problema del idioma, espero que no hayamos impedido que nadie te entienda, no gente que no habla inglés. Sí, algo que quieras agregar.
Sure, of course. Andreas, could you tell us a little bit about your next project? And Carmen, if you're working on a book or an album, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm working on different things now. One of the project I'm working on is about, it's not very far from Azor, but is about diplomats, and yes, it's about diplomats. It's not possible to say much more now, but it's again something about the milieu, the professional milieu, and how the work and yeah, it's about diplomats.
Connecting Europe and Latin America again?
For this time, no, just in Switzerland, and not only in Switzerland, but nothing to do with Argentina or America. No, not in this movie.
Great, wonderful. Carmen, do you have a project coming up?
Yeah, I finished a book, a poetry book. I have to edit it. I don't know. I'm not in this moment trying to do many things, but it was good for me to be encerrado, como se dice en inglés, to be locked in when we were all going to die with the virus. I mean, I danced, I sang, I played my instruments, and I had patients virtually. So it wasn't very traumatic for me, but it wasn't a moment that I want to go outside again. So yes, I finished the book. I have to go and present my standards, my jazz standards. I'm going to do one here in Mar del Plata, and then another one in Buenos Aires, small thing, because it's jazz and well, that's all. But I'm not in this moment concentrated that I have to do something. No, I want to rest.
So do I.
Yes.
I would really like to thank Carmen and Andreas for your wonderful conversation, and for the film, of course, Andreas. I wish you the best in the next project. And I would like to especially thank Sik, who was the head behind this the whole event. So thank you very much, Sik, for organizing everything, and for having the wonderful team that we got today. And I would like to thank everybody who joined us today.